Hi guys, welcome to the 158th episode of the Spiritual Brainstorm. On this episode, I just had, I'm filming from my car here, obviously. I just have these ideas that pop into my mind, so here's another video on the theme of death. So, I was wondering, why do we have to die? Who came up with this idea of death? And beyond the sort of materialist kind of explanation for why there is death and the fact that, your cells degrade and all that stuff, I find like there's more of a spiritual reason for death. And one thing I was pondering is what is easiest between living forever or having to die. And I find that people tend to exaggerate their fear of death. They think that death is the ultimate thing that you fear. But I think the biggest terror would be to live forever and to have a memory of every single thing that you've did forever. Every single mistake, every single regret, everything that you are. And that accumulates and accumulates. And I think that at some point, psychologically, people would beg to die, to be released from all of that tension, the accumulated tension of all of the things that are inside them that are contradictory, or that they regret, or that they wish they've done otherwise, or all the things that people have said to them, or that they've said to other people. And so I think actually death is almost like an invention from a certain stage in the evolution of consciousness and of life, to have a sort of a reset of, not of your karma, because nothing gets really lost, but of what one consciousness can handle at an individual level and keep together before it sort of becomes a cocktail, an explosive cocktail that you cannot sort of maintain its coherence and mental stability. So yeah, I think it actually takes much more courage to contemplate the fact that we live forever, that you live forever, and that you'll have to, deal with all of those things that you've, the choices that you made, your memories and everything, rather than to have this idea of there's a hard reset on everything and things die. Everything from procreation to, all these things are just like very novel strategies to pass on, the baton to a future generation, which is going to inherit some of those problems and ideas and unsolved things and regrets and all that stuff that you haven't been able to solve and untangle during your lifetime, but with a fresh kind of new energy, with like a clean conscious memory state, whereas the unconscious memory is of course inherited fully, via their DNA. They can basically access all of the prior history of all of your family plus all of the family of your partner. And that's also where it gets interesting. It's almost like if two people, the whole idea of procreation, for instance, two people that had opposite problems or opposite regrets, and I've seen this many times, even with my partner, where if I have a problem, for instance, I am too much of, I don't want to spend money. I want to really save, and I'm not really the kind that would spend money and have fun. And my partner would be the total opposite. She'd prioritize having fun over saving money. And so when you're a little bit too off to an extreme, then you meet a partner that is on the other extreme, and sort of kind of to bring you back to balance. And you can imagine that even this whole karmic kind of thing, where when you create kids, it's almost as if your problems and your partner's problems create a new kinds of set of problems, but where each has a part in the solution because of, matching problems or matching karma or matching, issues to be resolved in a certain lifetime. As you know, as we're humans, we're solving disharmony at the level of symbols, concepts, ideas, thought, whereas other less well, I wouldn't say less sophisticated, but let's just say different types of incarnations solve different types of issues that are much more physical in nature. Certain animals and stuff. And so it's a very interesting thing where you can contemplate maybe different ways of achieving immortality or prolonging your lifetime. And people say, like, for instance, if you look at people in medicine and all that stuff, they're going to say, well, we've extended lifespans tremendously, like from 30 years old to 80 years old and stuff. And they say it's because of plenty of different factors. But one thing I'd like to insist on is the kind of mental hygiene and the kind of support that people were getting in order to sort of maintain that kind of psychic coherence inside of them. And like people were, as our life standards rose, what also diminished is the number of trauma that we were exposed to. Like if you look at, the life of a coal miner in the 18th century or beginning of 19th century, I mean, those working conditions and all the stuff that they've experienced, I mean, it's just trauma upon trauma upon trauma, and not just physical, it's also mental. And so, it's not like just the physical body that disintegrates, but also the mental body that just like the emotional body that can't keep together and just explodes. And that has been overlooked completely, I mean, in our materialist science kind of realm, because everything there is physical. Like if you take care of your body and you get medicine and all that stuff, then everything should be fine. But, there's also this psychological support that now we have psychologists, we have all these new medicines that are more humane or etheric in order to take care of your health, but in other ways than just physical. And that thing is not accounted for in the correct way. And I find that today, if you have like a diminishing lifespan or that we're plateauing, is because not just because physical medicine is reaching its limits, but also because, there's certain, we need to go a step further in assisting people with keeping their kind of mental or emotional coherence with all of the stuff they've accumulated across their lifetime, and to, remain a whole, like an integral whole. And you can sometimes feel that like with elderly people where they're kind of losing it, they're kind of not, like they can't keep themselves together as an entity, even mentally. Like there's something like eating at them. And you'd say it's a mental disease, but I just think that it's a struggle of keeping their ego or their self united, even psychically, like psychologically. And then that translates obviously also with material problems where the different organs have trouble, maintaining a coherent whole. Like if you have an inner war inside your mind between, different parts of you and your traumas and your regrets and things that you can't keep together, then that also like impacts, how your body feels and all that stuff. And so like extending lifespan, I think about it in many different ways. Like if you look at the transhumanism kind of method for that, perhaps at some point people will try to like kill selectively various parts of them that they don't like anymore. Like for instance, there's a memory that they want to forget and reinvent something else instead. Like imagine like they're 12 and they did something really stupid and they received a huge like a punishment, or somebody really called them a certain name or something, and they really took that at heart and that traumatized them. And like the transhumanist way is locate that memory in the brain, fry it, and then maybe even replace it with a positive one, and you're a new quote unquote human And also, that's like the psychological kind of aspect to it. A kind of mini death, like you kill little parts of yourselves, and then you create new parts for yourselves, almost like doing a transplant. Like your heart had some trauma, so you take it out, pluck it out, put it in a new heart that is trauma free, and then you can live on further. I'm not too much of a fan of that kind of thing because it's kind of superficial and artificial. So that's how I would imagine, like, the transhumanist, purely materialistic way of looking at things is, obviously there's this idea of replacing body parts with fresh ones, but also this idea of replacing memories or who you are with new ones. It's almost like killing selectively parts of who you are, right? That you don't want to live with anymore. So imagine like you're an entity that is made up of 1,000 like different aspects to your being, and you like selectively pluck out or kill 100 of them and replace them with something else. The more spiritual one is enhancing our conscious ability to live with ourselves through love, through loving yourself, integrating different parts of yourself, and that's having this unconditional love towards yourself, but not in a narcissistic way, really in a benevolent and integrative way. And that's very, very difficult, actually, because in our societies, there's just so many things that are being, you have to surmount so much stereotypes and things that are saying like, no, if you do this or this or that, then you're a bad person and all that stuff. All of these ways all of the things that are being preventing you from really loving yourself and to integrate you as a being and keep yourself integrated as one. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll talk to you in the next one, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and happy to read your comments. See you later.